Welcome to this restorative session. My plan is to create a very well-balanced practice for you that incorporates the use of a chair and some restorative props, so you'll need to get some prop preparation before you start your practice today. So I want you to have a chair, and I would put a blanket on top of that chair so it's a little bit more comfortable unless you have a well-padded chair. You also want a belt, a yoga bolster, a couple blocks, a blanket or towel, and a sandbag. And if you happen to have a mid-sized grippy ball that can be a therapy ball of a few different diameters, you can try that for some of the poses today. So I'm eager to add the chair work into the practice. I find it's quite influential on my alignment and to get things pretty crisp, and also to support my knees and my hips. So we're going to start, and we're going to sit on the chair that's on your mat. And what you want to do is notice where your chair is facing in towards the lengthening part of your mat. You're going to turn your body to the side of the chair and then place your bolster between the legs so that this balances not only the alignment of your knees and thus your hips, but also aligns the properties of the spine. So if you feel like you're kind of on and off the chair a little bit when you're on the side, that's normal. So we're going to start with a simple breathing exercise with the hands resting on your lap. Let your eyes close and join me for a few moments in experiencing the belly moving with the breath and relaxing the heart pace, and simply arriving into your bones. Feel how your feet press down. Feel how the legs supported by the bolster. And that inner awareness of holding the bolster mildly with the thighs gives you kind of an uprising in the centerpiece of the body. So it's quite interesting to experience the belly moving now with the breath. Inhale for 4 through the nose. Exhale out of the mouth for a count of 5. Belly draws towards the spine. So as you inhale, the belly expands. And as you exhale, the belly draws back to the spine. And now let your eyes maybe slowly open. And you're going to take a twist to your right. So I'm sitting with the body facing to the right side of my chair. I'm going to place my right hand back on the bar of the chair and then bring the left hand to that bar. And this gives me the balancing quality of pushing into my right hand and pulling with my left hand and observing the tendency for the right foot to turn out, the knees to swerve to the right. So you want to make that inner grip occur with the leg muscles as you twist to the right side. This practice will really commingle some shapes that strengthen around the knee joint, the hip, the shoulders, and are very basic, refined poses for overall wellness, really stimulating the flow of lymph in the body. So starting with the twist. Now can you squeeze the bolster, squeezing, twisting, and then as you come out of the position of the twist, you're going to open out the arms. You're going to stretch both to the ceiling. Reach the left hand to the right wrist and lean to your left side. Try to get a little bit of that side stretch. Switch sides, right hand to left wrist, lean to the right side. Lift out of the center of the body. And then when you come back center, you're going to take the bolster And you're going to turn to the mat, to the center seat of the bolster, and reach the bolster forward on its edge, the short edge, and lean forward so the hands are on the short end of the bolster. You're extending your arms, you're letting your head lower down between the arms, and the spine completely extends. Get as full of a reach through the back muscles. Feel as the knees are wide. They almost touch to they're on the corners of the ribs, so your rib cage is moving down into your legs. It's an excellent version of child's pose, right? So it's more of a chair child's pose because the legs attach to the ribs in child's pose. Come back up. And now you're going to change that hold of the bolster to the other side. So turn to your left, have the bolster between the legs, twist to your left onto the chair with the hands holding the back bar, and go slow. Don't rush it. Feel the properties of pressing to your soles, pulling with your arms to create a balance between the vertebral column. One side lifts, one side turns. There's two sides to a spine. So we're working on hydrating and keeping those discs plump, right? So they don't get dehydrated. So as we twist, we're working with our strength of our back into our shoulders. There's quite a balancing potential for your inner environment for the organs. Now unwind, turn back to the center seat of your chair, and now we'll put the bolster forward. In fact, let's just simply place it simply across the mat, and then I want you to bring your feet as wide as possible, and as you lean forward into this pose, reaching your hands to the feet of the chair and lower your head down. Now, if you're nearly close to the bolster, you could stack your other blanket on top. You could add a block so that your forehead could touch down, which is important for the equilibrium in the spine, that you have a touching point with your upper body and the mid-body stretches, the legs stretch. Try with the hands moving down to the bolster or out to the legs. So the body has this inner perception of a squat. Quite powerful for stimulating the flow of lymph through the groins, a squat. And then the hands come back to the chair seat and you come up and cross the right foot up to the left knee and slide the left foot in so it's easy to adapt to that crossing. So what I have when I'm center seated on my chair is I simply have crossed this right foot to the left lower thigh bone. And as I lean forward now, you stay so you're center of your mat, but as I work on the description and we're practicing, you're working on leaning forward, and the hands could be either adjustable to the chair seat behind you to create that balancing sensation of stretching your chest. Okay, you've got a bolster in front of you. You could put your foot on it if this is a little intense for you. You could always try some variations that are creative. It might give you some relief in your knee. And for some of us, it might give us a deeper stretch. So keep going with that pose for another minute, but if you do need deeper stretch, you could put your foot on a block, and then as you lean down, you're reaching your hands back. This is important so you're not slumping in the chest. Whew. Change sides. Right foot down on the floor or on a block. left foot on the right knee. Keep it balanced with your hip joint. So I'm going to scoot a little forward on the chair seat, as long as I don't fall off. And as I lean into the seated pigeon pose, I want the hands to reach back on the chair, and that's really, really important that I have my hands holding the back of the chair to continue to open my chest. Lean forward, let your eyes close. Feel around the hip. Circling left foot is perfectly adaptable in this moment. Anytime you want to get some extra movements in. Now as you uncross the left leg from the right, you're going to find the seat centered and open the chest. Lift up the heart. Okay, feel the arch in the spine. And we're going to branch off from the chair seat. So I want you to let your hands lower down. You're going to carefully move the bolster. So it's going to be right next to the legs of the chair. So I'm going to scoot it in to the chair, right to the seat almost. And then I'm going to take a seat down on the bolster. And then add a blanket or a towel to the back of my mat here. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have all these aligned supports. Now, when you turn to get your feet up on the chair, you might find a little bit of a challenge for your core muscles. So you can give it a try. You can just give a try of scooting to the edge of your bolster. The key is the edge of the bolster. And you're going to lower down onto your side, left or right, whichever is your ideal shoulder. And then you're going to work on swinging the legs up to the seat. Okay, now you can also lie on your back and then scoot yourself up to the chair. But the key is that you're on the bolster, remember? That is the ideal support, so you're inverting the body. So from all those little twists that we worked through a few moments ago, now we let the legs relax on the chair. Feel the knees move open, noticing how the ribs center. And I want you to let your body find a few moments with the sandbag placed across your rib cage, right below the sternum, the rib intersection. And then when you have that sand there, can you let your head rest back into the skull, and kind of notice how the skull is almost a support itself, that you can be grounded in your brain. All that gray matter grounded in the brain itself, into the peace that covers that. So let your body surrender entirely, and your arms are resting down. Bear witness to the movement of the breath now a little higher in the body, from the belly to the rib cage. That central channel. Inhale, fill the ribs. Exhale, let it go. Now simply feel the natural arch of the lower back. If it feels almost easy for you to be in this shape for your back muscles, that's a stretch for most of us. That's a bit of a stretch for the arch, the natural curve in the spine. So we're in a mild inversion, meaning our pelvis is elevated up from our brain. So immediately when you begin inversions, right, that inversion persuades the exhalation to lengthen naturally, which calms the nervous system. And the diaphragm flows more freely when it's tilted. So on your exhalation, which it goes back up into the space below the heart, it's carried there with the gravitational flow that you're placing your body in. So when we remain here for a few minutes, we can start to feel the body kind of mold into the props that are underneath it and support it. So what we're going to do is transition now into a leg pattern of movement. And I want you to use the chair for this to support the guidance and the balancing habit for the hips. So keep the chair underneath. So you've added a prop to the sequencing. And now what we'll do is take that sand aside, and you're going to grab a hold of your belt and place the belt under the right foot. So I've got my belt in a loop. It's connected like yoga belts do. It's a pretty wide loop. So I'm going to bring the right foot into the belt and the foot up into the pushing upwards. Okay, now as I let the leg lean a little forward, I'm going to grasp a hold of the loop and slide it to the back of my head at the occipital ridge. Okay? Now with this point of touch at the back of your head, you can feel there's two ridges, right? There's the ridge of the arch, there's the occipital ridge, and when you feel kind of your skull cap, right, that's kind of where that spot is touching, your emphasis here is make sure that this belt is feeling like it gives you traction in your neck, just the right amount, equalizing the sensation in the right leg. Keep the hips symmetrical as possible. That left leg could stay entirely relaxed. Can you relax the left leg? Now feeling the traction of the back of your body all the way up into that cranial support. So you're working on a little bit of this cranial sacral distribution of energy from the back of your skull all the way down to the sacrum. As the leg is lifted, it generates that circulation through the back. Okay? So take a hold of your belt, slide it carefully and let your head lay back, and hold the belt with the right hand, and you're going to move the right leg quite far out. So open the leg as far as it will go. If it seems to be rolling you a little bit to the side, you want to stay disciplined that your ribs are centered, your left arm is open. And there you go into the deeper sensation of the leg. Okay? Try to keep that right leg centering its push out through the heel. Now we move the right leg back up, and we change the foot. Left foot up, right foot down, change the side, and the same thing on the back of your head. Yeah, you might want to check your belt a little bit, make sure it's not twisted. It could be twisted closer to your foot, but not at your brain. That's not going to feel comfortable. And you might sample if the belt's a little higher on the back of your head, higher than the occipital ridge. That's right where the trapezius muscle in your back attaches. Left side might have some differences, but give it the same quality and support. So I'm going to keep my foot into the belt and naturally lengthen through the back body. Feel the belly move with the breath. it changes that cycle of circulation to the brainstem, calming. Slide the belt off the back of your head, lower your head, and then grasp your belt with your left hand and move the leg open. Now that might be a key instruction for you, is to move the leg open and just see what gravity can do for you, right? It's interesting to let gravity have you. It's why we use the props, so we suspend the body, but then we have them lifted so when you drop something open, there's more to stretch this way. So simply feel the inner leg. Now move the left leg up. Feel the natural resistance when you're holding the belt. And then can you bring your right foot up into the belt for a moment? And I want you to just sample this. We have the belt around the center of the back of your feet. Now, you're going to bring your knees open. So some of you have done cobbler's pose with me before. The heels are touching the start. This is a little different. So I'm holding onto my, the top of the foot is wrapped in the belt, right? So the belt is on the inside of the lower bones of the leg. And then I'm pulling with my hands towards my belly, and then I'm going to lower my feet onto the edge of the chair, the edge of the chair. So stay with that. If you can't quite see, I'm going to pivot a little my angle. So my feet are together, and my belt is around the skin on the top of the foot. And when it's wrapped, I don't want you to twist your knees, but I want you to keep your feet at the edge of the chair seat. And then when you center them, you decide how far up on the seat you want your feet. Seat your feet. So the very edge might feel progressive for you. Having them on the seat might be pretty defined for your inner thigh. I want you to really feel the inner thigh stretch. Quite deep up into the inner hip. Like you feel it to the bones. So it's pretty much right into the bone. That weight-bearing position. You're pulling. You have the feet stacked up on the chair, so it does progressively intensify now. Okay, now a few more moments here. Feel that sinking into your hips. And then simply slide the belt off your feet. Just slide it off. Feel what it's like with the knees and the arms open. And your feet might slip a little bit apart, until you can balance. If your back is sliding a tiny bit off the chair, what I want you to do is work so that your bolster really, not the chair, but the bolster really is at the back of your pelvis. Really maybe a little higher if you feel like you're starting to create kind of a tucked back, like a rounded back. So I want you to feel like your pelvis is up on the bolster so you have that arched back. Okay? Now, bring the knees together. We're going to take Viparita Karani, reverse action. So when we go into this inversion, I want your legs to be straight up. Okay. Now, it can either be with or without sand. So if you decide this is the way to go right here, and your arms push back into cactus pose, elbows open, there you go. And those that want to take some sand, grab a sandbag. Remember, you want to make sure that the back of the pelvis really does feel supported on the bolster here. So don't skimp on that surface of your bolster. Let the prop support you. Place the sand on the soles of your feet and push up. With the legs in that stand and the sand pressing itself into the feet, you'll feel the back muscles strike a balance. You can put your hands on the belly to feel the diaphragmatic breathing. This is a really interesting strength for the core of the body. The diaphragm has to move downwards on the in-breath, and it's such a primary respiratory muscle that when we are in a standing position, it provides us that kind of prolapse state. But when your legs are upside down, you actually have to work your core a tad bit more to just do every breath. So the exhalation is the easeful part of your experience when your legs are up. That creates that trance and that calm-induced state, since the exhale is naturally going to lengthen on your inversion, right? In an inversion, it will extend 1 or 2 counts naturally without effort. So be here whether you're a sand or not, and let the legs strike a balance. Feel where the arms open, or cactus, or straight back. And if the back of the shoulders center, rest your eyes into the skull. Feel where there is really a nice balance in our hips for this position. It's symmetrical, it's weight-bearing with sand, and it's balancing. So as you begin the practice of bending and shifting your leg muscles, you're going to bend the knees. And as you lower down the thighs to the ribs, bring your hands to your sand, help assist, move it back. And now I'm going to ask you to take a few poses without this chair. So you'll try to be a little clever on pushing that chair away. Okay? If you can just guide it away carefully and bring a block or a ball between your knees. Either is fine. Place the ball between the knees, and as you shift whichever object you've chosen between them, you're going to let the knees rock from right to left. Just go side to side, easy peasy. Feel where you squeeze into the object, and when you just simply hold on to it. You'll find your muscles in your back starting to warm a little bit more. If they felt somewhat tone or maybe borderline kind of stiffened and strengthening in the last few poses, that would be natural. But now is the time to loosen up the backs and get into the second phase of the practice, the second and final phase, to work into balance of the hips and knees. Now, if bending your knees this deeply causes some tension and shortness on the side of the knee, okay, the fibular head, you might find just a little bit of lift of your feet away from the buttocks. It will require some strength, right, just to do that type of movement. And as the knees go side to side, come back into the center, and then knees to the chest, and you're going to push the bolster forwards. And then once your feet are on top of the bolster, you want to push into the heels and lift up your hips into bridge pose. Feel the front of the thighs open, Feel the glute muscles certainly as toned as possible here. And then when you create that balance of muscular strength in your thighs and into your knees, stay and reach your hands together underneath you. And if the palms can barely squeeze together, that's fine. What I like to do with this one is to take my belt, slide it underneath, and then I grab a hold of my belt, palms open to the ceiling, grab the belt underneath you, and pull it apart. It won't go apart because it's not a rubber band, but you will feel that circulation in your shoulders strengthen. Now, as you lower your spine down, kind of feel your hips, let the spine center down to the floor. Hold on to the belt. I like the belt idea here. Hold on so it's as wide as your rear, so you won't be sitting on your hands. And then when you lift up, I want you to stay with that alignment of holding onto the belt. Activate the arms, pulling it apart and lifting your hips up. Stretch the quadriceps. If your knee is feeling this, you need your bolster farther in front of you, okay? So take that alternating length of the spine, lift of your hips, scooping it up. Let go of the belt, bring your arms overhead. Inhale, hips up. Exhale, spine down. Okay, bring the knees in, remove the object between them. Kick the bolster to the right side of your mat and take a hip crossover, right leg straight down, left leg crosses over to the bolster, feeling where it opens your lower back and your hip. Create that balance through the spine. And as you're here, if you feel you could use a little more stretch in your hip, add a sandbag across the outer left thigh. Open your arm on the left so that the chest feels that balance. No contraction here, right? There should be very little contractive states in your muscles. You're really feeling that you're opening, you're feeling spacious in the body, spacious in the left hip. Feel that crossover of the left leg. Your head likely feels like it's turned to the left, eyes closed. Feel where there's a really nice balance in your lower back and your hip. If it still is a pretty ripe stretch, stay with it. Give it a few more moments and just observe what part of that left hip could use the release. Is it really high on the external hip point? Is it lower on the leg towards the knee? Is it creeping into your back muscles? And then send that support to that space. Give it a few more moments of breath, slow and deep. Experience that repeat of breath, that repetition to bring the body to a state of calm. Slide the sand off, taking the position to the second side. So when I bring my knees in, I like to hug them into the chest, sometimes circling the knees and let them push a little bit away to massage the outer rim of the sacrum. So feel that circular experience. If you're having some challenge with your spine getting this much stretch, you might need the blanket under your head a little bit higher. So keep that in mind. It's all about how we design the support under us and around us with the prop. So you always have to do prop preparation for each pose. Move your bolster to the other side. And as you switch the right leg over to the bolster, cross over, spend, a little less energy on the perfection and feel the intervention internally in the core muscles, in that belly bind, and then around to the hip, unwinding. The sand can be quite helpful. I did forget one thing that can be useful, those of you that have a ball. You can place the ball at the sacrum. So if you repeat this session again, you might use that ball on the first side, and I place it. I'll show you. Stay on your right leg over for those there. You cross the leg over, and then you tuck the ball right to the sacrum. So it's at that wedge at the base of the spine, and that anchors the sacrum, and then helps you reach across the SI joint over into the hip. It's a nice progression to circulation balance for our back and hip, back of our hip. Okay, so open the right arm, bring yourself into the pose, let your head roll to the right, be here, breathe here. Now, when you design the movement of the waist to twist, feel how the lower belly moves with the breathing pattern. And we move the lower belly breathing up into the thoracic, so we think about the mid-body being costal breathing, so it's intercostal, so the muscles between each rib are called intercostals. So those are breathing muscles. So we can actually work on expansion and contraction and how much air you get into your lungs, which is creating strength with the pattern of movement of the intercostals to strengthen your lungs. How much air you get into your lungs depends on the movement of your ribs. So we do quite a bit of rib strengthening movements here. Okay? So we'll come into that as a final project. Sand away, ball away, roll away. Roll into take all fours. I want you to spend a moment here doing whatever things you need to do to get your blanket below your knees. And you might like to have a position for your rib cage that is balanced between your hands supporting your shoulders and your knees supporting your hips. So round your back and feel where your chin moves to your chest and your head tucks under. Inhale, arch the spine. Exhale, round your back, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine. And exhale, rounding your back. Arching the spine. Okay, now shift your hips back towards the feet, but feel that the hips are up so that it doesn't cause any violation in the knees. Now, those of you that are comfortable with this pressure of kneeling, you can take child's pose with a block and bolster in front of you for your final pose. But the bolster is tipped up on the block. I push my bolster in between my knees, and then I basically straddle the bolster, and as I lean back, I let my head turn to the side. Now, to make this a little bit more comfortable for those knee issues, you're going to take a blanket, maybe that's on your chair or a towel, and you'll wad it up at the back of your knees and tuck it in so it's on my calves and my knees are wide. Okay, and then lower down. Now you can also have a towel on top of your bolster, and that will be a little easier on your neck. So there's a few different options. So if you're not using the blanket under your legs, you might put it under your head. There's one more option, which is a block between your feet. Put it up to the second or lowest height, so you have a little prop for your rear. And that can be quite nice, surprisingly. And then rest away, taking off any eyeglasses you have so the hardware on the face doesn't grip up your face. Those of you in that position, glasses off, and lower down your body into the props. Now, if this doesn't work for you at all with your knees, those of you that need a variation from this one, I want you to take your bolster in front of you, put your blanket on the other side of it, lower down your body prone on the bolster. I'm going to put my block under my blanket on the other side of my bolster and rest my arms into cactus and be here. So you have some nice prone options, and these are good for opening up the upper lungs. This is a typical, knowledgeable pose for those in therapeutic respiratory care. So it's good to know this, that if you're prone position, you have a little pressure, tiny bit under your chest, and breathe, since 70% of your lungs are in the back of your body. So really get a nice, full, deep breath. Be sure to turn your head to the other side. Now, those of you that are in child's pose, I want you to feel yourself come up to table. Those are in crocodile pose here are going to bring the toes under, and then as we come up to table, lift up the knees, stretch the backs of the legs fully through dog pose. Press the ground away. Feel that rich stretch in your calves, down into your feet. Take your feet a little wider on your mat, all the way to the edges. And as you lean down with your head touching the bolster, or near the bolster, start to move your hands on back, and then align your hips as wide as the seat will go, so you have a wide stance. Hold your elbows with your hands or let your arms dangle. You can also hold the legs with your hands. Let your head, your neck, completely traction. Head below the heart, inversion. Take a few deep breaths and sighs out. With the arms heavy and the knees bending, we're going to come up and come back into the rest of your day. So thank you for taking some time to experience this practice today. And hopefully it was helpful for your circulatory system, your lymphatic, and all the major bodily systems. This practice can improve. It's a good resource for you to come back to again. And if you have any requests, send me a message.